This week on Engage the Sage.
I don't always ignore your emails, but when I do, it's because it's in the syllabus. Hi, I'm Don Saucier. Welcome to this week's episode of Engage the Sage. This week we're going to talk about that common occurrence for those of us who teach when the student asks us for information that is already on the syllabus. The syllabus is where I frame out my entire course. I talk about what the course is going to do. I put the student learning outcomes on there. I put ways that you can reach me. I put the content we're going to cover, the assignments we're going to complete, how the point structure is broken down, where the reading assignments are. If I think it's important for my students to know when they're deciding whether or not to take my class, it's in my syllabus. They're going to know how my class is going to run. They're going to know what we're going to talk about. They're going to know the assignments they're going to complete and when they're due. They're going to know if we have exams, when those exams are going to be, and the content it's going to cover. The syllabus is a document with a lot of information. And this is information I want my students to know moving throughout my class. So when a student sends me an email or comes to my office hours or asks me before or after class for information that's on the syllabus, I understand this can be a little bit frustrating. There are memes and comic strips that are devoted to the frustration of having to tell students that it's in the syllabus in answer to the questions that they have about your course. One of my favorites is the Dos Equis guy, and it says, I don't always ignore your emails, but when I do, it's because it's in the syllabus. Now, the syllabus is important, and we want our students to know about the syllabus. And I think one of the things that we can think about when our students ask for information that we've already provided them to the syllabus is to think about what we can do to help our students get to that information and to empower them to find information on their own. There are two strategies that I recommend when I'm faced with the prospect of my students asking me for information that's already in my syllabus. The first strategy I recommend is to teach your students what a syllabus is and how to use it in your class. It's pretty common on the first day of our classes to go through the syllabus, to help our students understand what our class is about, how the points are broken down, where the assignments are, how the class schedule is going to work, and all of those other kinds of things. I think it's important to tell them if they have a question about the course or about what's in it or when a due date is or what an exam is going to cover, that the syllabus is the first thing they should check. It's important to understand, though, that if we're going to refer our students to the syllabus, that information should both be in there and be clear and easy to find for the students. Something I do with my students is at the beginning of every class, I do announcements. And typically I do these Mad Lib style. We've done a video on this previously. But what I'll do is I'll ask my students, when's the next exam? What's the organization? What's it going to cover? And I ask them, and where can you find that information? And they will reply, it's in the syllabus. And if that syllabus is stored in some online course management system, I'll ask them, where is the syllabus? And at my institution, they'll say, on Canvas. I've found that these intentional and periodic reminders have helped my students to find that information on the syllabus so that I don't constantly have to give them that information. They're empowered now to find the information and to comfort themselves if they ever have concerns about what's going to happen and when it's going to happen. These periodic reminders empower my students to find the information on their own so they don't have to ask me. Now, just because you've told your students about the importance of the syllabus and you have a beautifully crafted syllabus and you remind them that the information is stored there, it doesn't mean that students are still sometimes going to ask you questions where the information is clearly described in the syllabus. And it's very easy to forget our own experiences as college students. We sometimes ask those questions of our instructors that were already on the syllabus. I was a first-generation college student. I had never heard the word syllabus until I got to college in the first place. The purpose of the syllabus to me wasn't that clear, and it wasn't the first place that I would look for information. I can actually distinctly recall one situation where a teacher came in and said, and your paper is due next week. And I said, for real? She said, yeah, it's in the syllabus. And I said, what's the syllabus? Now, had she not made that announcement in class that day, I would have gotten a 0 on that assignment. So I appreciate that she gave us those kinds of reminders. So empathizing with our students and their experiences and understand that they're not college teachers like we may be is going to help us teach them. So you're going to have students like me who come in and you've tried to teach them how to use the syllabus. Your syllabus is great, but they just don't know to look to it. So they're going to ask you a question where the information is already on the syllabus. So my second strategy, when a student either emails you or comes to your office hours or asks you before or after class information that's already explained on the syllabus, I think this creates a teachable moment. It's very easy in that moment to get frustrated. It's very easy in that moment to think that the student is not listening or is not trying. But in reality, that student is reaching out to you. That student is doing something very difficult, and that's asking someone in a position of authority over them for help. Being a college teacher, I'm very aware that I'm trying to teach my students both content and skills that are going to help them later in life. And one of the things that I do not want to punish is a student coming to me for help. So I want to be accessible and I want to be helpful when they ask me any question. For instance, if a student sends me an email and asks me a question where the information is already described on the syllabus, the first thing I'll say in my email is thanks for your message. I appreciate and empathize with how hard it is to send that email to me in the first place. So I want to thank them and validate them for having done so. Next, I want to empower them. So if I know that information is in the section on class schedule on the 4th page of my syllabus, that's how I'm going to answer their question. I'm going to say, thank you for your message. The information you're looking for is in the class schedule section on the 4th page of our syllabus. Check that out. If it's not clear, send me a question. I want to make sure that you get the information you need. Ignoring the question or berating the student for asking the question doesn't do anyone any good. You're missing the opportunity to empower your students for the future. Now, it's natural to be frustrated, but understand the student who is asking a question is trying, and we want our students to try. We want our students to care about their performances and to invest themselves in our classes. By them asking you that question, they are doing those things. If I made that student feel in any way belittled for asking that question of me, I risk becoming the person that keeps them from asking for help in the future. And I really don't want to be that person. I want to be the person that students come to because they need help and they trust me to help them out. Now, I haven't done their work for them, but I've pointed them to the information so that they can answer their own questions. And hopefully, I've taught them what a syllabus is all about. I've taught them how to use that syllabus not only in my classes, but in the other classes that they take. So to sum up, I think the first strategy we can take in these situations is to help our students understand the value of our syllabus in our classes and teach them how to use it. We can also remind them to use it at strategic points of the class. And second, when our students ask us about information that is contained in our syllabus, let's be empathetic, let's try to understand their perspective, and let's try to validate them for asking for help. Use it as a teachable moment and remind them how to use the syllabus in our class. So yeah, it's in the syllabus. But when your students ask you those questions, this is an opportunity to teach your students. And I don't think we should miss those opportunities. Thank you for joining us this week on Engage the Sage. In the comments, we'd love to hear any recommendations that you have for dealing with this situation when it's in the syllabus. Please like, subscribe, sign up for notifications, and share on social media. We'll see you next time.